The quiet in the room wasn't natural. It wasn't peace. It was tension, dense and suffocating, the kind that wraps around your chest and doesn't let you breathe right. I sat there for an hour before she came home. Not moving, not blinking, barely breathing. The envelope was still on the table, closed, untouched. Not because I was uncertain, but because I wanted her to open it. I wanted her to hold the truth in her perfectly manicured hands. I wanted her to feel that slow burn of dread climbing up her spine, the kind I'd felt for weeks, maybe months, as the lies piled up behind every look, every word, every fake little kiss goodnight. Her car pulled into the driveway. I didn't need to look. I knew the sound of her tires, the specific way she locked the doors, the extra 2 seconds she always waited before shutting off the engine, as if she needed to rehearse something. And that night, she took 3. The door opened. She walked in wearing that navy dress I hadn't seen in over a year, the one she said she gave to Goodwill because it didn't fit right anymore. Her hair was curled. She never curled her hair for me. Her heels tapped the floor rhythmically, deliberately, like she wanted to be heard before she was seen. Then, as she rounded the corner, she saw me. She smiled. Not with her eyes, those stayed still and unreadable, but her mouth stretched into a grin that looked rehearsed, like she knew she had to sell it hard tonight. "You're up late," she said, tossing her purse onto the chair like she owned the room. "Didn't think you'd still be awake." I didn't speak. She walked further in, pouring herself a drink before she even took off her heels. She kept her back to me, but her voice carried easily. "Listen, I know we haven't really talked since Saturday, and I'm sorry if I was a little distant. Morgan was going through it and I—" "Stop," I said. She froze. Not stiffly, not dramatically. Just enough for me to catch it. Enough to know she was calculating. She turned around, glass in hand, fingers too tight around the stem. "Stop what?" I pointed at the envelope. Nothing more. She didn't move at first, just stared at it. Then, as if pushed by some invisible force, she walked over and picked it up. She opened it like she already knew what was inside. And when the papers fell out onto the table, screenshots, photos, dates, even a copy of a receipt from that stupid hotel 2 towns over, her expression didn't break. Not right away. She looked at the photos, at the text logs, at the timestamp security cam still of her and him walking out of the side door at 1:36 a.m., hand in hand like some careless teenage affair. She blinked. Once. Then she said, "This isn't what it looks like." I almost laughed. Almost. But instead, I stared at her. Quiet. This was a mistake. I mean, this happened, but it wasn't like, "It's not serious," she said, still flipping through the papers like she might find something in there that would save her. "You told me you were at your mom's that night." "I was. After." "After what?" I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, then said, "Don't do this. Don't twist it." Twist it. That's the phrase she used. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I messed up." Just an accusation tossed back at me like I was the villain in this. Like I was manipulating her by daring to uncover the truth. I stood up. Slowly. "Who is he?" "A friend." "From where?" "Work." "You said he quit 2 months ago." She paused. That was the moment I saw it crack. Her whole performance began to stutter. Her pupils darted to the right like they always did when she scrambled to rewrite the script in her head. I knew this dance. I'd seen it 100 times. But never this bad. "Ashley?" I said, my voice dropping. "How long?" She didn't answer. So I asked again, "How long?" And she had the audacity to say, "Why does that matter? You already made up your mind, haven't you?" I stared at her. For the first time in years, I saw her clearly. Not the woman I married. Not the woman who held my hand when my father died. Not the woman who sent me dumb little texts during boring meetings. This wasn't her. Or maybe it always was. "Answer the question," I said, quieter now. She crossed her arms. 3 months. That was a lie. I knew it. I had the evidence. She started seeing him almost 7 months ago, before our anniversary trip. I had the text messages with her telling him she wished she could cancel the trip because 2 days alone with Nate will feel like jail. But I didn't say any of that. I just let the silence stretch. Then she did something that nearly made me walk out right then. She smirked. A slow, tired smirk. Like this was boring to her now. Like she was over it. "So what now?" she asked. "You going to cry? Throw something? Call my mom." That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake to her. This wasn't something that spiraled out of control. It was a decision. Repeated. Planned. Hidden. Laughed about, probably. Shared between two people who thought they were untouchable. She thought I was too soft. Too slow. Too forgiving. She thought wrong. I didn't leave the room. I didn't even flinch. She stood there across from me, arms folded, a half-empty glass of white wine in her hand, and that bitter little smirk still carved into her face like she was waiting for me to melt. Maybe she expected a breakdown. Maybe she thought I'd beg, plead, ask her why. But I already knew why. People like Ashley don't fall, they jump. And when they land, they blame the ground for hitting too hard. "I'm going to bed," she said finally, like the conversation was over. Just like that. The marriage was burning and she was ready to turn off the lights. "You're not sleeping here." That stopped her. She turned, slowly. "Excuse me? You're not sleeping in this house tonight. You can take your bag, your car, your little glass of poison and get out." She raised an eyebrow. "This is my house too." "No," I said. "It was our house. That ended the second you started letting someone else touch you in the middle of the day and then came back here like nothing happened." She laughed. Not because it was funny, but because she needed the noise to drown out the guilt she didn't want to feel. "You're being dramatic. This doesn't have to turn into a whole thing." I moved closer, not to threaten, just to see her clearly. I wanted to remember every detail of that moment. The scent of her perfume, the cold twist of her expression, the way her mouth twitched when she realized I wasn't playing along, that I wasn't the same man she thought would forgive anything just to keep the peace. "You cheated," I said. "You lied. You covered it up. You mocked me behind my back. And now you're acting like this is some minor inconvenience." "I made a mistake," she said flatly. "People make mistakes, Nate. You made a series of choices." She exhaled loudly and slammed her glass down on the table. "So what do you want from me? Huh? You want me to grovel? Cry? Sleep on the porch? You want me to say I'm sorry even though you're clearly not going to believe me either way? I want honesty." She snorted. "Too late for that." "Then I want space," I said. "Tonight you're leaving. You can call whoever you want, stay wherever you want. I don't care. But you're not sleeping next to me like you didn't spit on everything we built." She grabbed her purse, yanked it open, pulled out her phone. "Fine. I'll call my sister. She's in Miami this week. I'll figure it out," she snapped. And she did. She left. Didn't even change. Just stomped out in that same tight navy dress like she was walking away from a party she was too good for anyway. The second the door slammed shut, I felt it hit. Not relief. Not rage. Just the collapse. I sat down at the edge of the couch and stared at the envelope she left behind. One of the pages had fallen to the floor. It was a screenshot of a message I'd already memorized. "I wish I could wake up next to you instead. He doesn't touch me anymore. Not like you." The date on it? The day after she told me she was too tired for anything and went to bed early. I remember lying next to her that night, thinking she was just stressed. I kissed her shoulder. She pulled away, said she had a headache. I believed her. I thought I was being a good husband. I thought I was being patient. But patience with a liar is just slow suicide. You wait for them to change. You wait for things to return to how they used to be. You wait for something that never comes. And in the meantime, they drain you dry. The hardest part wasn't the cheating. It was the cruelty, the rehearsed smiles, the calculated dismissals, the way she knew I was hurting and used it to sharpen her lies. She didn't break my heart. She broke the version of me that still believed she loved me. That night, I slept on the floor, not because I had nowhere else to go, but because the bed felt like a lie. I didn't sleep, not even a little. I lay on the living room floor staring at the ceiling like it might write me a reason. Like it might spell out the one thing I hadn't considered. That maybe there was a version of this where I wasn't the fool. But the silence didn't bring clarity. It brought noise. Echoes of all the moments that now felt poisoned. The way she used to laugh at my dumb jokes. The way she used to leave notes in my lunch when I had long shifts. The way she cried when I proposed, at least I thought those were real tears. Maybe even those were rehearsed. By morning, I'd gone numb. There was a light knock around 7:14 a.m. I knew it wasn't her. Ashley wouldn't knock. She had a key, and even if she didn't, she had the ego to let herself in like nothing had happened. But I opened the door anyway. It was Morgan. Yes, that Morgan. She looked confused and a little sheepish, holding a tray of coffee and a plastic bag from the local bakery. "Hey," she said slowly. "Is Ashley here?" I stared at her, said nothing. She asked me to drop this off, said she forgot some stuff and didn't want to come by right away. I stepped aside. "Come in." She hesitated. "Look, I don't want to get in the middle of anything. I didn't know what was going on. She just told me you guys were having a rough patch, that you were being paranoid. Did she tell you I found proof?" Morgan blinked. "No, of course she didn't." I motioned toward the table, where the folder still sat open. Morgan's eyes flicked to it, and I could tell the pieces were falling together. She said it was emotional, that it was just some guy she met after we had a fight, that you were cold to her, that you pushed her away. There it was again, the script. She told Morgan a version that painted me as the distant one, the uncaring one, and I wondered just how many versions of that story she had going. Did her sister know a different one? Her coworkers? Was she out there spinning tales while I was still making her coffee every morning? Thinking we were healing? Morgan sat down hesitantly. "I feel stupid," she whispered. She used me as her cover more than once. "I didn't know. I swear." "I believe you," I said, and I did. Because Morgan looked like someone who just realized she was holding a match to a house she didn't know was burning. She left quietly, didn't ask questions. Didn't offer sympathy either, which I appreciated. I didn't want comfort. I wanted air. Clean, cold air that didn't smell like her shampoo, didn't echo with her footsteps. By noon, I started packing. Not her things. Mine. Not because I was letting her win. Not because I was giving up. But because this house, our house, was rotten. I'd spent the last 3 years painting over mold, pretending the foundation wasn't cracking, hoping that if I just held on long enough, the storm would pass. But Ashley was the storm, and I was done living under it. I packed 3 bags. Essentials only. Laptop, documents, some clothes. I left my ring on the counter next to her untouched glass of wine. I didn't leave a note. I didn't want to give her a headline to twist. I wanted silence to speak for me. That evening, I checked into a small rental on the other side of town. The kind of place you stay in when your life is in limbo. No photos on the walls. No memories. Just a clean bed and enough distance from the ruins. She didn't call that night. Didn't text. Didn't even pretend to ask where I was. The silence from her wasn't shocking. It was revealing. I realized, then, how long I'd been the only one fighting for this. How long she'd been mentally checked out, already halfway into someone else's arms, while I was still memorizing the way she liked her coffee. I was grieving a version of her that hadn't existed in a long time. I lay on the rented bed that night staring at the ceiling again. But this time it wasn't searching for answers. It was letting go of the questions. 3 days passed. Not a word from her. I didn't reach out either. Every hour in that rented apartment peeled something off me. Anger, confusion, grief. But what remained was sharper, colder, more focused. I wasn't waiting for her apology anymore. I was watching to see just how far she'd fall before she looked back. And she didn't. Not once. Until the 4th day. It was a Sunday morning. Quiet. The kind of quiet you don't trust anymore. I just poured myself coffee when my phone buzzed. "Ashley, can we talk? I want to explain. Please." No hi. No apology. Just explain. Like this was a misunderstanding. like I hadn't already seen the screenshots, the hotel receipts, the casual filth she and Tyler had shared right under my nose. I stared at the message for 10 full minutes. Didn't type a word. Then my phone rang. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. 15 minutes later, I heard a knock at the door. She found me. I don't know how. Maybe Morgan told her. Maybe she tracked my location, or maybe she just guessed. But when I opened the door, there she was. Hair tied up, oversized hoodie, leggings, no makeup. She looked small, tired. Not like the version of her I'd been battling in my head, the one in tight dresses and smug smiles. This was something else. Something rehearsed in a different way. "Nate," she said. "Please." I didn't step aside. I didn't say a word. I just waited. She shifted, looked down at her shoes. "I know I can't fix this, but I need to tell you what happened. You already did, with your actions. That's not fair." "No," I said. "It's accurate. I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said, voice trembling just enough to be convincing. "I was lonely. You were always working. You stopped looking at me like you used to. I felt like I didn't exist anymore." There it was, the turn. Her as the victim, me as the cold, inattentive husband. She must have rehearsed this speech in the mirror. "You felt invisible. So you decided to sleep with someone else?" I asked. Her eyes flashed. "I didn't decide anything. It just happened." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You chose it. Repeatedly. That's the part you keep skipping over. You looked me in the eye and lied every single time you came home from him. Don't stand here and pretend it was some kind of accident." Her lip quivered, but her eyes? Dry. Dry as the day she left. "Do you still see him?" I asked. Silence. I asked again. "Are you still seeing him?" She looked away, and that was my answer. "Leave," I said. "Nate, please. I'm not asking for us to go back. I want to explain everything. I want you to know it wasn't about him. It was about me. I was broken." "You weren't broken," I said, voice steady. "You were bored. There's a difference." She flinched like I'd hit her. "I gave you everything," I said. "Every ounce of trust. Every piece of me. And you used it like it meant nothing." She stepped forward, reached out like she was going to touch my arm. "I still love you." "No," I said, backing away. "You don't. You love what I gave you. The stability, the safety, the life. You loved being worshipped. But the second it got real, the second we had to do the hard work, you vanished into someone else's arms." Her hand dropped. "You're not here for me," I continued. "You're here because he didn't choose you, or he got bored, or he never meant it. And now you're looking for something familiar, something safe to crawl back to." Her silence was confirmation, and I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. "Go home, Ashley," I said, "or wherever it is you sleep now." She stared at me for a long moment. No tears, just quiet rage behind her expression, like she realized she couldn't spin this anymore. Then she turned and walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't say goodbye. And when the door clicked shut, the air in the apartment changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't thick with shame and memories and echoes. It was mine. For the first time in a long time. I didn't know what came next, but I knew it wouldn't involve begging for scraps from someone who had already thrown me away once. The next 2 days were quiet, but not in a way that felt peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that sits just on the edge of something, like the air right before a storm. You don't see the clouds yet, but you feel them building. That pressure, that shift. You know something's coming, and all you can do is brace. On Tuesday, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown. "Hey, you don't know me, but I think we need to talk. It's about Ashley. I'm sorry to drop this on you, but I figured you'd want to know everything. Jenna." I stared at the name. Jenna? I didn't know a Jenna. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure if it was bait. Maybe Ashley was trying a new angle. Maybe it was someone from her side of things trying to play damage control. But something about the message didn't read fake. There was a tone to it, a heaviness. I waited an hour before replying. Me, what do you want to tell me? She responded almost instantly. Jenna, I'm Tyler's girlfriend, or was, until last night. My stomach dropped. Of course, Tyler, the ghost that had hovered between us for months now had a second shadow. She continued before I could even ask anything. Jenna, I found your name on his Instagram. I recognized your wife from some pics. Then I saw the messages, the ones between her and him. I didn't want to believe it, but I kept reading. You were mentioned. A lot. I had to sit down. My hands were shaking. Me, what did they say? Jenna, she told him you were boring, controlling, that you hadn't touched her in over a year. She said you were emotionally manipulative, that you used money to control her, that you threatened her once, that she felt scared of you, felt like a punch straight to the chest. Not just because it was cruel, but because it was so deliberate. This wasn't just a fling. This wasn't about attraction. Ashley had created a whole new version of me just to justify what she was doing. She built a villain out of the same man who once drove across town in the middle of a blizzard to bring her soup. She rewrote me as some monster just so she wouldn't have to feel guilty while she snuck around behind my back. Jenna, I don't know you, but I saw the messages, and I don't believe her. I just thought you deserved to know. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I sat in silence, watching the wall, her words echoing through my mind. That she told him I was controlling, that she felt scared, that I hadn't touched her. All lies, and yet, they had power. Because those lies weren't told to me, they were told about me. Out in the world, staining the air I had to breathe. That night I drove. No destination, no plan. Just miles of road and the hum of a radio I didn't listen to. I passed our favorite diner. The one where she'd steal my fries and claim she wasn't that hungry. I passed the park bench where we sat after our first fight, when she cried and said she'd never lie to me again. I passed the flower shop I used to visit every month, just because I liked the way she smiled when I surprised her. All of it felt like a different life. A movie I'd watched 1,000 times and suddenly realized I was never in. When I got back to the apartment, I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes before going in. I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to think. I wanted to erase. But grief doesn't erase. It clings. And betrayal? It stains. The next morning, I got a text from Ashley. Ashley, I heard you talk to Jenna. I want to explain before you get the wrong idea. I didn't answer. She followed it up 5 minutes later. Ashley, don't believe everything she says. You don't know what was really happening. That was the moment it clicked. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got exposed. She thought she could twist this too. Thought she could get ahead of the narrative. Control the fallout. But the truth was already out. And there was no crawling back from it. Not now. Not ever. She showed up again. I knew she would. That kind of desperation doesn't stay quiet for long. The moment someone like Ashley feels the ground shift under them, when their version of the story stops being the only one people believe, they panic. They show up not because they want to fix things, but because they want control back. And Ashley? She had always craved control like oxygen. It was late, just after 9. I just stepped out of the shower when I heard the knock. Not gentle, not patient, sharp, hurried. I dried off, pulled on a t-shirt, and opened the door. There she was. Hoodie again, but different this time. Not the carefully crafted image of the remorseful wife. She was shaking. Her eyes were wide, not with sadness, but with urgency. You talked to Jenna, she said, skipping any pleasantries. I didn't respond. She doesn't know everything, Nate. She's twisting it to hurt me. I leaned against the doorframe. So now you're the victim again. She has no idea what our marriage was like. Our marriage, I said slowly, was filled with second chances, and you burned through all of them. Ashley stepped forward. I never said you were abusive, I swear. I told him we had problems. Yes, but I never said. You told him you were scared of me. I didn't mean it like that. No, I cut in. You said it because it made it easier for him to touch you while I was at home planning our anniversary. Because if I was the bad guy, you didn't have to feel guilty. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then tried again. It wasn't real. Him and me. It was just a stupid thing. I felt invisible and I was angry and… You don't destroy someone just because you're angry, I said. You leave. You take your pain and your pride and you leave. But I didn't want to leave you. I laughed. Sharp. Cold. You left every time you walked into his hotel room. You just didn't pack a suitcase. Her jaw clenched, and I saw something then. Not guilt. Not heartbreak. Fear. But not the kind she pretended to have for Tyler. This was the fear of someone realizing the story she crafted was collapsing. That there was no redemption arc left. No sympathy to manipulate. No more get-out-of-jail-free cards. I'm losing everything, she said quietly. My job, people are whispering. Jenna's talking. And now you… Her voice cracked for the first time. You won't even look at me like a person. No, I said. I'm looking at you exactly how you've shown me you are. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. It didn't get bad, I said. It was bad. You just finally ran out of places to hide it. She stepped back like I'd hit her. For a second, the silence stretched between us again. That old, familiar silence from our last few months together. The one filled with things neither of us wanted to say because we both knew the truth would shatter what little was left. Then she spoke, barely above a whisper. If I leave now, that's it, isn't it? Yes, she nodded. So you're really done. You were done first, I said. You just didn't have the decency to say it out loud. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just turned and walked back down the hallway, slowly, like she was hoping I'd call her back before the elevator came. I didn't. I shut the door before she disappeared. That night, I finally packed the last box of things I hadn't wanted to touch. My wedding ring was still on the counter. The one I left for her days ago. I held it for a moment, then dropped it in the trash. Not to be dramatic, just to let go. A few minutes later, I got another message from Jenna. Jenna, she's saying you hit her. That's what she's telling people now. I thought you should know. I stared at the screen. There it was. The final play. The last card in her hand. I should have been shocked. But I wasn't. Because some people don't stop at lies. They keep going until they've erased every part of the person who saw through them. I didn't sleep that night either. But it wasn't the same insomnia as before. It wasn't heartbreak or grief keeping me awake. It was the realization that Ashley wasn't finished. She wasn't going to leave quietly. And now she was trying to burn everything down on her way out. The message from Jenna sat on my phone like a live wire. She said Ashley was telling people I'd hit her. Not just to Tyler, but to friends. Maybe even to her boss. Jenna had screenshots. Messages Ashley had sent to Tyler, claiming she'd covered the bruise with makeup, and that she was scared of what Nate might do next. It was fiction. Cruel, calculated fiction. But I knew something about stories like that. If you don't shut them down immediately, they grow roots. I spent the morning in damage control. I forwarded the messages to my lawyer. I had one now. I hadn't intended to involve legal help. I thought we could part cleanly. But that idea died the second she decided to turn reality into a weapon. By noon, I got a call from Human Resources at my job. We've received a third-party report regarding allegations made against you in a personal capacity, they said. There's no investigation at this time, but we're obligated to inform you and monitor the situation. She'd crossed the line. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was destruction. I called her. She didn't answer, so I left a voicemail. No shouting, no threats, just truth. You can twist the story, Ashley. You can lie to strangers, to friends, to the mirror if it helps you sleep. But here's what you won't do. You won't drag me through the mud to excuse what you did. I have records. I have messages. I have a lawyer. And if you try to bury me with fiction, I will bring the truth to light in a way you can't spin. Walk away, while you still can. While there's still anything left of your name to protect. I hung up. It wasn't a bluff. I didn't need to fabricate anything. I had her messages, her fake alibis, her receipts, Jenna's screenshots, her own words. contradicting every accusation she was suddenly throwing at me now that she had nothing else left. And the worst part? I wasn't surprised. There had been signs, not just of the affair, but of who she was when backed into a corner. The way she manipulated facts in small arguments. The way she cried when caught but never apologized. The way she deflected blame like it was toxic. It wasn't new. It was just amplified now, louder, more dangerous. She didn't love me. She didn't even hate me. She just needed a villain to make herself feel like the hero of her own wreckage. I spent the rest of the day drafting a timeline, backing up files, forwarding things to my lawyer, laying bricks for the wall I was going to need between me and whatever version of me she was building in her stories. That evening, Morgan called. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I didn't know she was doing this. People are talking. It's getting ugly. I know. I just want you to know I don't believe her. I appreciate that." Then she paused. "She's not well, Nate. I think you know that." I did. But the thing is, being broken doesn't excuse breaking others. She had choices. She made them. And now she was trying to avoid the consequences by lighting more fires. But I wasn't afraid of the flames anymore. Let them burn. Because I wasn't the one hiding. The retaliation began quietly. Ashley didn't confront me directly. That wasn't her style. She operated through whispers, backchannels, private DMs sent with just enough implication to avoid accountability. But I knew what she was doing. Every silence from a mutual friend. Every vague social media post. Every look I got from people who used to greet me with warmth. All of it pointed to the same thing. She was rewriting history one person at a time. Painting herself as the victim. Me as the villain. I got my first real confirmation of it 2 days later. A former coworker, someone we'd once double-dated with, sent me a message. "Hey man, I don't want to get in the middle, but Ashley's been saying some pretty serious things. You okay?" I asked him directly, "What things?" He hesitated, then said, "That you had control issues, that she had to leave for her safety, that you were threatening her now." Threatening? I hadn't even spoken to her since the voicemail. I sent him a photo of the printouts, the ones of her and Tyler. I included one of her own messages. He still has no idea. I'm honestly impressed with myself, lol. He didn't reply after that. That's when I understood the truth. Facts don't always matter. People don't always want the truth. They want a version that's easier to swallow. And Ashley's version? It gave people something to rally around. It gave drama. It gave sympathy. It gave her the attention she'd always thrived on. And in her world, she'd rather be pitied than forgotten. But I wasn't staying silent anymore. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer that Friday morning. We filed a cease and desist. It was time to make it clear, if she wanted to play with fire, she'd have to face the smoke. That afternoon, I finally spoke to Jenna again. We hadn't talked much since she'd first messaged me. She had her own chaos to deal with. Tyler had tried crawling back to her too, once Ashley cut him off. But Jenna? She wasn't like me. She didn't hesitate to slam the door. "I've seen this before," she said. "Women like her, they don't lose quietly. They unravel loud." "She's got people believing I was violent," I said. "I know, but she's spiraling now. You can see it in the way she's talking. It's not about you anymore. It's about keeping control. She's desperate." I wasn't so sure, because desperation wasn't supposed to be this methodical. Then Jenna told me something else. She sent Tyler an audio clip, said she was going to report you, that you were harassing her, said she was considering a restraining order. My mouth went dry. I hadn't spoken to her. I hadn't seen her. She was building a case on nothing, which meant she was trying to push me into reacting so she could twist it into evidence. That night, I locked everything down, changed passwords, closed joint accounts, backed up everything, photos, messages, videos, not for revenge, not to hurt her, but to protect myself from someone who had stopped seeing me as a human being. And then just past midnight, I got a call. Unknown number. I let it ring. Voicemail came through 30 seconds later. Played it. Her voice. Shaky. Breathless. Almost crying. "Nate, I need to talk to you. Please. I know I messed up. I know I went too far. But everything's falling apart. I didn't think it would get this bad. I didn't mean to ruin your life. I didn't want to be the one people hated. I didn't want to be the one left behind. Please, I need you to listen. I sat there for a long time after it ended. Not because I was moved, but because even at her lowest, she still centered herself in the wreckage she created. Not one, I'm sorry. Not one, I lied. Just fear that she was losing control. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken by her anymore. I felt done. I didn't call her back. Not that night. Not the next day. Not ever. I saved the voicemail, forwarded it to my lawyer, and let the silence stand in for my answer. Ashley had created the fire. Now she was choking on the smoke, and she wanted me to pull her out. But I wasn't going back into that burning house. Not for her. Not for the past. Not for the ghost of the woman I once loved. The final confrontation came 2 days later. Not planned. Not civil. She cornered me. I was leaving the grocery store, mine somewhere else. Honestly, the first quiet moment I'd had in weeks. And there she was, standing by my car. Hoodie again. Sunglasses. Hands stuffed in her pockets. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Don't walk away," she said as I tried to pass. I didn't answer. "Nate, please." I stopped, only because part of me needed to see her, to confirm what I'd suspected since that voicemail. She was unraveling. "What do you want?" I asked. Her voice cracked. "I want to stop this. Everything's out of control. Jenna's turning people against me. Tyler's ghosting me. My friends won't return my texts. You've lawyered up. You told people I abused you. I didn't say that. You implied it. You fed them a version of the story where I was the monster. And now that they're asking for proof, you're crumbling under the weight of your own lies." She didn't deny it. "I thought if I could just make them understand." Her voice trailed off. "Understand what?" I asked. "That you were lonely? That I didn't give you enough attention? That justifies cheating? Lying? Dragging my name through the dirt? I didn't know what else to do. You could have told the truth. I was afraid. Of being hated?" I stepped closer, voice low, sharp. "You weren't afraid of me, Ashley. You were afraid of what people would think of you." She went still. And that was it. That was the moment. Not a scream. Not a meltdown. Just stillness. Like she finally realized the last page had already been written, and she wasn't the hero in it. "I miss you," she whispered. "You were the only real thing I had." I didn't flinch. "You had me," I said, "and you threw me away like I was disposable. You chose someone who gave you attention over someone who gave you everything. And now that it's gone, you want it back like nothing happened." She reached out like she was going to touch my arm. I stepped back. That distance? It wasn't physical. It was final. "You don't get to rewrite this," I said. "You don't get to break me and then ask for comfort." She didn't cry. There were no tears left. Just silence. Defeated silence. She nodded once. "Okay." And then she walked away. No more words. No last look. No apology. Just gone. And as I watched her fade into the crowd, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even relieved. I was hollow, but not broken. Not lost. I was free. It's been 3 weeks since that final conversation. Since she stood in front of me and, for the first time, didn't try to perform. No tricks. No fake tears. Just the cold realization that her story had collapsed and there was no one left to believe it. Not even herself. I haven't heard from her since. Not directly, anyway. I've seen traces, whispers through people we used to know. Posts that seemed designed to get a reaction. Mutual friends choosing sides or choosing silence. It doesn't matter anymore. Because now, finally, I understand something I couldn't before. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from accepting the truth. The whole, raw, jagged truth, not the version they offered, not the version you hoped for, but the version their actions wrote for you. Ashley wasn't a mistake I made. She was a lesson I learned. A hard, humiliating, expensive, soul-bruising lesson. but a necessary one. For months, maybe years, I gave her everything. I excused the coldness, explained away the distance, blamed myself for the tension. I gave her trust long after she stopped earning it. I protected her reputation. I loved her more than I loved myself. And in return, she didn't just betray me. She weaponized me, twisted the narrative so tightly that I nearly believed I was the problem, that I had pushed her into someone else's arms, that maybe I deserved to be lied to. But that's the sickness of manipulation. It rewires your sense of reality. It turns betrayal into something you think you earned. Not anymore. I'm not angry at her. Not in the way I was. Anger gave her too much power. What I feel now is distance. A vast, quiet distance. Like she was a storm that passed through my life, tore everything up, and moved on. And I'm the one standing in the aftermath, rebuilding with clearer eyes and steadier hands. I filed for divorce last week. No mess. No drawn-out battle. The evidence is all there. My lawyer says it should be quick. Clean. There's no ceremony for the end of a marriage. No speech. No applause. No closure scene. Just a signature. A date. A line drawn between then and now. But I don't need the ceremony. I've already buried the version of myself who begged her to stay. I've already mourned the man who thought love meant forgiving everything. And in his place, there's someone new. Someone who knows that trust isn't unconditional. Someone who knows that love isn't sacrifice without limit. Someone who knows that when a person shows you who they really are, you believe them. So to anyone reading this who's in the place I was, if you're waiting for them to say sorry, stop. If you're hoping they'll change, stop. If you're thinking that loving them harder will fix what they've chosen to break, stop. You don't save someone by setting yourself on fire. You don't build a future on the ashes of betrayal. And you don't heal by staying where you were broken. Walk away. And don't look back. You don't owe them forgiveness. You owe yourself freedom.